All right, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whenever you're listening to this video. Again, I really appreciate you taking the time to try and hopefully learn some new things here with me. And so today what the focus is going to be is we're going to be focusing on the midpoint. We're going to be asking ourselves, how can we find the midpoint? I hope I can show you some shortcuts that maybe make it really simple, but then we're going to take the simplicity of finding the midpoint and actually figure out a formula. And with that formula, it can be applied at any time, okay? So no matter how hard or easy finding the midpoint can be, you know you've got something you can rely upon, and that's the formula, okay? So the first thing I'd like to do is I want to go ahead and have you graph these points for me. I want you to graph point A, which is going to be at, let's see here, negative 6, 9. Wow, that's bad. Negative 6, 9. B, which is going to be at negative 6, 2. Okay. And I made it D. You'll see why here in a second. D is going to be at 4, 9. Okay. 4, 9. So go ahead and graph those 3 points for me. And then we're going to talk about how to find the midpoint between all 3 of those segments. So I have A, which is at, well, I'll do B first, negative 6, 2. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2. There we go. There's B. Okay. A is up at 9. So 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay. There's 9. Okay. There's A. And then D is at 4, 9. So 1, 2, 3, 4, up at 9. There we go. D. All right. So we want to find the midpoint, okay, of those lines right there. Okay. I'm going to get rid of some of those parts there. Let's do one more. Oh, I don't want to do that. Let's bring it all back. Let me try this again. All right. So from there, how do I find the midpoint of AB? Well, I'd hope you would think that since we can count that distance, we talked about that in the last lesson, that I can also count it and then, maybe divide it by 2, okay? So if I go ahead and figure out what that length is, let's see here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Did I do that right? Yeah, okay, length of 7. Sorry, trying to read it very well. And if we have that, we can divide that by 2, which will put it up at 3.5 units from the last one. So let me put that out here off to the side again. Hello? There we go. Oh, there we go. Okay. So the length of AB is 7 units up. And if I go ahead and divide that by 2 to figure out where the midpoint will lie, we're looking at something that's 3.5 units up from there. So if I go ahead and count this up, 1, 2, 3, we're looking at that point, 3.5 right there. Are you coming to help me? There we go, 3.5. All right, now that point actually has an ordered pair of negative 6, positive 5.5. So I'm going to write that out here. Negative 6, comma, 5 and 1/2. All right. Now the midpoint, and again, if you want to go ahead and put this down right there and there, you can. You don't have to, that those are equal. The midpoint between A and D, if we're starting over here at A, counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, has a length of 10. All right, so if I go ahead and do that, 10 divided by 2 is going to be 5, and if I count 5 units over from A or D, it doesn't matter, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, we're looking right here. Okay, or you can do it from D, you get that same spot. So what is that? Negative 1, 9. Okay, And on my paper, I call this point C, I call this point E. And so the question then became was, well, how do I find the midpoint of BD? Well, it's not an issue of counting along that line right there. You could probably estimate pretty accurately, okay? But one way you could do it is to go ahead and draw a line completely vertical from that point right there, okay? And a line completely horizontal from this point. Where they meet, okay, should be the midpoint right there, all right? Now, how can I prove that F is the midpoint of BD if that's the point? Well, one thing we could do, we could go back to what we talked about yesterday, and we can go ahead and say, okay, let's use our Pythagorean theorem to find BF. Okay, so if I go ahead and do that, Pythagorean theorem here going up 1, 2, 3.5. So 3 1/2 squared plus, and if I count over, 1, 2, going right along this line right here, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, over 5 units, okay? And that would equal BF squared, okay? If I do the same from D, if I count over from D to E, that's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that length is 5 units. And if we count down from E to F, we're going to go down 1, 2, 3, and there's that half there that we had drawn completely horizontal over. So this is over 3.5. And what we notice, that would be DF. We notice that these two equations are the same, and if the two equations are the same, we know that their lengths for BF and DF have to be the same. So we know that BF equals DF, the lengths, and therefore, I don't know if we've talked much about this year, we have 3 dots. Therefore, I know that point F equals midpoint of BD. Okay? So something to just think about and keep in mind as we take a look at this. So from there, that's one way you could find the midpoint of an angled segment. Draw a right triangle, find the midpoints of the sides, and drop them down, basically perpendicular to the sides. All right. But that can be a lot of work, okay? And more work sometimes because of more work, we get more possibilities for error. So what can we do here to figure out the distance between B and D? Well, if I go ahead and label B as the ordered pair is x sub 1, y sub 1, and D is x sub 2, y sub 2, okay? In order to get, let's see here, in order to get this point right here, the x value, okay, which is the same x value here, okay? Basically what we're doing is we're going to go ahead and take, let's see here, x sub 2, actually I'll just write this out, 4 minus negative 6, so that would give us 10 because we're adding 6, divided by 2. Hold on. Oh, I'm sorry, I should have said plus. There we go. That makes more sense. So 4 plus negative 6, that gives us negative 2 divided by 2 gives you negative 1. Okay? All right, that's one of the bad things about doing a video of yourself. If you make a single mistake, it's frozen in time. There's no way I'm going to go back however long the video is to replay that. So sorry about that. Should have been plus. 4 plus negative 6 over 2 gives you negative 1. So as a result, if I work this out, this is basically x sub 2, let's see here, plus x sub 1 over 2, okay? And that will give you how to get the x value. If we look at the y value here, okay, what we're going to do is I'm going to go ahead and take, and I'll make a little note of this here, I'm going to go ahead and take 9 plus let's see here, 2 divided by 2. Okay, 9 plus 2 is 11. Half of 11 is 5.5. So what am I doing with my y values? Y sub 2 plus y sub 1 over 2. Okay, so what's the big difference between this formula and the midpoint formula? Okay, again, this is the y value here. The big difference is that the midpoint formula is adding and the distance formula is subtracting. Okay, you can talk about the distance formula being more detailed, which it is. Okay, but this is your midpoint formula. So let me write it out. Mid, cursive, Brandon, cursive. Okay, just too touchy. All right, so we end up with the x value can be determined by taking x sub 2 plus x sub 1 over 2, okay, and again, I'm getting this from over here, okay, and then the y value can be found by taking y sub 2 plus y sub 1 over 2, okay. Now, I would like you to apply that. I want to give you an example here where you can apply that. Let me go ahead and actually erase everything but that, okay. All right, so get rid of all that chicken scratch. All right, a lot cleaner board. There we go. So let's do an example with this and see how we do. If I were to give you A is at negative 3, and let's do B is at negative 1016, okay? And I'm just going to help you out here. I'd like you to apply this one as x sub 1, y sub 1, and x sub 2, y sub 2. I want you to take a moment and go ahead and plug those values into the midpoint formula and then simplify it for me, okay? And then we'll see if you did it correctly, okay? So actually pause your computer and go ahead and do that, and then come back to me and see if you did it correctly. All right, let's take a look and see how you did. If I do x sub 2, that's negative 10 plus negative 6 over 2, comma, and then y sub 2, which would be 16, plus y sub 1, negative 3 over 2. Okay, so how do we do? If I go ahead and add first, now I know the order of operations says divide, but when they're together over 2, you want to add them first. Okay, so we have negative 16 divided by 2, and we have 13 divided by 2. Okay, and so if I go ahead and work the rest of this out, we end up with a negative 8, comma, 6.5. And that's the ordered pair of the midpoint between points A and B that we just showed. Okay. Now, there are a couple other examples that I want to make sure you've seen or worked through with you. So let's go ahead and take a look at example 2. Come up here, example 2. And this one, instead of giving you both endpoints like I did on the last two, B and D, and then A and B in that second one, I'm going to give you an endpoint, okay, at negative 3, negative 2. So if I go ahead and put this out, negative 3, 1, 2, 3, negative 2, not even touching the board and it's still showing. So A, I'll say, is at negative 3, negative 2, okay? The midpoint here is they're going to be at 3, 4. So I'm going to go to 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, this is your midpoint, and it's going to be at 3, 4. Okay. Now the question is, if this length right here only takes you to the midpoint, where's the other endpoint lie? And I'll just show you a quick and easy way to find it, and then we'll talk through a formula that you could use as well. And again, I want you to know both. So if I'm going to go from A to the midpoint, I can just count the slope. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we got 6 here, 6 here. If I continue in that same slope, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Right there should be my endpoint, okay? Which is going to be at, let's see here, 9, 10. Okay, 9, 10. All right, so I've got my ordered pair of my other endpoint by continuing the same slope. Same rise, same run, okay? Now, how else could I figure this out? I want to give you a formula as well, because the formula is going to be helpful if you can't graph the points. So let's say that this endpoint, B, let's say that it's x sub 2, y sub 2. And let's say that A is at x sub 1, y sub 1. Okay? And obviously this would be the x midpoint. I'll just say x mid and y mid. Okay? Well, if we use our formula that we talked about a little bit ago, we know that if I go ahead and take x sub 2, remember it's plus this time, as opposed to when it was the distance formula, it was minus, okay? X sub 2 plus x sub 1 over 2, that will give me my x midpoint, okay? And if I go ahead and do y sub 2 plus y sub 1 over 2, that will give me my y midpoint, okay? And so if I can just plug in the information that I have off to the left over here into my equation I have on the right, I should be able to go ahead and solve for x sub 2 and y sub 2. So here's what it should look like. X sub 2 is unknown, so x sub 2 plus x sub 1 was negative 3. Negative 3 over 2 equaled the x midpoint, which was 3. Do the same thing for the y. Y sub 2 plus y sub 1, which was negative 2, over 2 equaled the y midpoint, which was 4. Okay? Now, you have to treat this part right here, this equation, separate from this equation. If you don't, you're going to make a mistake. All right? Now, I've seen students, they kind of figure out, how do I solve all of that? It just looks foreign to me. If you remember from last year and probably the year before, when you had something like this, x over 6 equals 9 over 12. Let's say something like that, okay? Well, you know how to solve that because it's a proportion. Just cross multiply it. We get 12 times x is equal to 6 times 9, which is going to be 54. And you can just go from there and solve. So I'm going to turn my equation over here into a proportion. I'm going to put it over 1. I'm going to put this one over 1. And if that helps you remember, you just need to cross multiply. Then go ahead and do that. Okay? 1 times anything is itself, so we have x sub 2 plus negative 3, okay, or I can just say minus 3, it's the same thing, is equal to 6, 2 times 3. Okay? Over here, you have y sub 2. I'm just going to put minus 2, same thing as plus negative 2. And then 2 times 4 is equal to 8. Okay? Now, in order to get this negative 3 to the other side, I have to add it. So if I add 3, I get x sub 2 equals 9. And if I add 2 to both sides, I get y sub 2 is equal to 10, which is a good thing because that was the answer. Okay? So, I want you to know how to use that formula. You will see it again. You will see it on probably the chapter test, and so you need to know how to do that. Now, the next example is actually an example that applies that formula. So I want you to go ahead and work that out for me. If you need some help, let me clarify one thing before we do anything. I know this is pretty much common sense, but I want to make sure we're all on the same page before you start plugging things in. Again, the equation, I would probably jot down, let's go down here, x sub 2 plus x sub 1 over 2 equals the x midpoint. And then this one is y sub 2 plus y sub 1 over 2 is equal to the y midpoint. Okay? So this one right here, this is going to be my x midpoint. And this is my y midpoint. Okay, and maybe I'm going to say that this is my, let's say x sub 1 to stay consistent with the other, and this is y sub 1. Okay, so take a moment. I'd like you to go ahead and turn off your, not turn off, pause your computer and see if you can plug that in correctly and figure out what the x value is going to be and what the y value is going to be. Okay, hopefully you got a chance to go ahead and figure that out. But here's what we're going to do. If I plug this in, x sub 2 is unknown, so we're going to put that as there, plus x sub 1 we know is 2. Over 2 is equal to the x midpoint, which was 4. Okay, and y sub 2 again is unknown, plus y sub 1, which was negative 3, over 2, which equaled the y midpoint, which is negative 6. Okay. Now, as I told you before, if you struggle to know how to solve these problems, change it into proportion. That's definitely one way you could do it. Cross multiplying here and here, we have x sub 2 plus 2 is equal to 4 times 2, which is 8. And y sub 2 minus 3 is equal to, again, multiplying there, okay, negative 12. Okay. If I go ahead and subtract 2 from both sides here, I get x sub 2 is equal to 6. And over here, if I add 3 to both sides, I get y sub 2 is equal to negative 9. Okay. All right, very good. So hopefully you got that. If you didn't, look back through and can read my chicken scratch there and figure out what you're doing. So this last example, what I'm going to show you here is something that could show up on the air test. I'm not saying that it will, but it could. Okay. This last year, the geometry students were very successful. We had, it's a tough test. I'm not going to lie to you, it's a very tough test. But we had about 89% of our students score it proficient or above. And I saw the breakdown for the students, and almost all of them, we had some proficient, but most were, accelerated. We had a few that were advanced, and I'd love to get more of you up into that advanced category. So, taking a look at the example 4 for the air test, here's a question that they could ask, and I would log this away into my notebook and refer back to it when we get closer to the test, because it's not a hard concept, but it's kind of a weird way to word things. So let's go ahead and graph D and B, okay? Let's say B is at negative 6, 2, okay? And let's say D is at 4, 9. Okay, now you may be asking yourself, where's he getting these points? I'm just pulling them out of thin air, really, okay? Just using some random points in the coordinate plane that works for all the points, so it doesn't matter which points we choose. So negative 6, 2, negative 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, up 2. Okay, there's negative 6, 2, that'll be B. And for D, 4, 9, 1, 2, 3, 4, up 9. D, 49. Okay. Now from there, we need to go ahead and figure out the type of question that will be asked will be something like this. Identify a point that breaks up a segment into the blank ratio. Now that ratio could be different things. If the ratio was 1 to 1, 1 to 1, okay, they're asking for the midpoint. And here's why, if that doesn't make sense to you. If I go ahead and draw a segment, okay, let's say A, B, C, 1 to 1, knowing that these are equal, is that this length to this length are the same. They're the same, it's broken up proportionally, both are equal, 1 to 1, okay? If I was to go ahead and say, we're going to break this up in ratio of 2 to 3, now what it would be, and I'll try to make this look as accurate as possible, if this were A and C, let's see here, 1, 2, 3, 4, so 1, 2, 3, 4. And if all of those lengths were the same, okay, from A to B, this length here would be 2, and this length here would be 3. Okay, so 2 parts to 3 parts, 1 part to 1 part. And so that's what it means by breaking it up in a ratio of whatever. So the question then becomes is here's what the example was like. Where would point E lie if it broke the segment into ratios 1 to 4? So we want to break it into a ratio of 1 to 4. That's a colon there. Okay. So how do we do this? Well, I'm going to start the exact same way, and there might be other ways to do it, but I'm going to teach you the easiest possible way to do a problem like this. Okay? And so I'm going to count the vertical and horizontal distances of the legs of that right triangle. So if I count that, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So that length is 7. And that length, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10. Okay, length of 10. And so what I'm going to do is I know that when we have a 1 to 1 ratio, there's actually 2 parts that we're trying to figure out. When I have a 2 to 3 ratio, there's 5 parts that we're trying to figure out the length of. So right now, just like the 2 to 3, if I'm at a 1 to 4 ratio, I've got 5 parts that I have to break my line segment up into. 1 on one side of that and 4 on the other. So if I go ahead and take these lengths of the sides of the triangle and divide them by 5, so 7 divided by 5 gives me 1 2/5, okay, or 1.4, okay, that would be right there. And if I were to divide 10 by 5, 10, now you're not being touchy on me, what I do wrong. 10 divided by 5 gives me 2, okay? So from there, I can do this. 7 is the vertical distance, so I want to go up 1 2/5. So 1 2/5. So I'm right about right there, okay? And if I go over 2, 1, 2, you see that this point right here is on the line, okay? So I'll just label that E sub 1, okay? That's one place that would break this line into 1 part and then 4 part on the other side. So 1 part would be B to E sub 1. The 4 parts would be E to E sub 1 to D, okay? You could also go up here and go 1 to 4 from the other end point. So D, if I go 2 in the horizontal distance and down 1.4, we're right there. And again, it's on that line right there. I'll say that's E sub 2, okay? And so 1 part would be E sub 2 to D, and 4 parts would be B to E sub 2. Excuse me, okay? Now, so my point, the ordered pair, here's how you'd find it. Obviously, E sub 1 is over at -4, and we're going to go up 1, 2, 3, and 0.4. So -4, comma 3.4 or 3 2/5. You can do either one, okay? For E sub 2, let's see here, we're over at 2, and we're going to go up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Now, we just came down 2/5 right here. So that means on the other side of that is 3/5. So it'd be 7 and 3/5, or 7.6 either way. Okay? So that's how you'd find those points there. A good question, a good follow-up question would be something like this. What if it's not 1 to 4 and we just use this 5? What if it's 2 to 3? Well, you just continue on in that same manner. So you just do 2 parts. So I would go up, let's see here, 1 and 2/5 over 2. Go up 1 and 2/5. Let me think here. So that would be 2.8. 2.8. So we're up in point right there, almost up 3 from this point. So 1, 2, 3 would be right there. We're up at 2.8, and then we're going to go over another 2. Now my line's not correct. It should be right here is where my line should be. Okay, so that's where it would be if it were in ratio of 2 right here to 3 would be the other side of that line. Okay, and then you could do the same thing coming from the other direction. You could go over 4 and down 2.8, which is doubling, again, doubling this length here. So over 4 down 1, 2.8, so almost 3 would be like right in there. Okay, so I know that's a little bit more obscure type of question, but if you can know how to do that, I'm pretty sure I'm going to offer you some bonus on the next test. So you have some homework to take a look at. Make sure you do that. I appreciate your attentiveness. I hope that was understandable. Again, I apologize for my chicken scratch. I need to find a better board that's more precise, and I will try to do that. So have a great day, and I will see you later.